Ayan na mga kameta, kamusta kayo dyan? Sorry, ang dami natin mga ek-ek dito kasi medyo maingay itong mga kausap natin. Balikan natin itong mga latest developments dito sa Pilipinas. Actually, not necessarily within mainland Philippines, but doon sa West Philippine Sea, no? Doon sa ating karagatan sa Kalayaan Group of Islands. May reports po no na ang China po ay tuloy-tuloy po yung kanilang reclamation activities doon sa mga isla na kasama sa Kalayaan Group of Islands. So once again, nakikita natin na pagdating sa relasyon natin sa China, yung West Philippine Sea po ay isang defining factor, no? And how much yung bilateral relationship natin ay haunted by the developments in the West Philippine Sea or South China Sea. Of course, interesting in timing ito kasi next month, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is expected to visit Beijing for his maiden visit to China. So of course, ang expectation dyan is dahil papunta na sa China si President Marcos Jr., dapat maging friendly etong China sa kanya. But we know that historically, China tries to or tends to have a good cop, bad cop kind of behavior, even when it's conducting very high-level meetings with heads of state of neighboring countries. Case in point, back in the mid-2010s, nung bumisita si Xi Jinping doon sa India, no, if I'm not mistaken, in Hyderabad, doon sa meeting niya with Narendra Modi, yung Indian Prime Minister, nakita natin na habang chummy-chums si Xi Jinping, beshi-beshi with Modi, and all of that, and chest thumping, and friendship, and all of that, alpha male moment, yung PLA ng China, yung People's Liberation Army ng China, dyan sa Himalayas, no? Doon sa actual line of control, no? Doon sa disputed territories ng China and India, ay biglang gumawa ng mga aggressive actions dyan. So we have a precedence kung saan, even when there is an ongoing high-level meeting between China and a neighboring country, suddenly we see an escalation in the territorial disputes. Now, of course, marami mga teorya dyan. Yung isang theory is that, well, maybe really Xi Jinping didn't know about it. This was not coordinated with the president, that this was some rogue elements doing X, Y, and Z. That's one way of looking at it, but I'm increasingly skeptical of that considering how powerful and influential President Xi Jinping is in terms of determining the course of action on every major policies of China, whether yung COVID-19 policy nila at home, or whether yung mga kanilang policy vis-a-vis US or South China Sea or ASEAN or countries like the Philippines. But nonetheless, that's one question, like to what degree is Beijing overseeing daily activities or day-to-day activities ng kanilang mga military, paramilitary forces who are there doon sa pinaka-frontiers ng China's claims, whether sa Himalayas, in the world's, highest areas, pinaka-elevated areas, or whether it's in the South China Sea, in the deepest oceans of the world. So that's one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is it's a good cop, bad cop situation. Kung saan Xi Jinping will try to talk nice to his counterpart and say, these are all the benefits we're going to get if we have a friendly relationship. But at the same time, yung kanilang military is sending a very clear signal that, well, if you don't want to go the nice way, we can always do something else. So that's another way of looking at it. Good cop, bad cop situation. But there's a third way of looking at it, which is, well, whether yung nangyari sa Himalayas or whether yung nangyari dyan sa West Philippine Sea, all of them are a reflection of long-term trend in China's growing assertiveness in terms of its territorial disputes. Well, hanggang magulo dito yung pinsan ko, yung aso dito. Ay, nako. Anyway, so these are, okay lang, you can just pass. It's okay, we're informal, tita. No worries. May mga nagrarambo-rambo na dito. Karambulan. Picasso! Ito ka. We need you a cameo. Come on, bebe. Okay, yan. So, Picasso, explain mo yung ha. Explain mo yung policy natin dyan sa ha. Picasso, galit ka ba? Ayan, si Picasso. Ito yung mga co-producer, co-anchor, andito. Mamaya, baba ka na, tapos hingi tayo ng stars, ha? Ayun dyan na yung mami niya. Okay, balikan natin yun. So, of course, going back to the Philippines, ang tanong ng iba is, why would China do what it's doing over the past few months? So, let me just give you guys a rundown of the developments dyan sa West Philippine Sea. Ito ay base sa article ko, I just finished literally kanina lang, bago tayo magmeta at bago maging gabi at magkaroon ng pangit na lighting and all. No? So, let me just give you a rundown. So, the latest is that per a satellite image taken November 4, 2022 by Maxar Technologies, ang Beijing po ay nagko-consolidate ng kanyang reclamation activities dyan sa Eldad Reef, no? Which is claimed by the Philippines. It's within the Calayan group of islands. But these reclamation activities have been going on since 2014. So this is more of a consolidation efforts rather than a kind of a new development per se. But you have to look at it within the broader context. So last week, yung Philippine Department of National Defense po ay nag-express ng similar concerns over swarming of Chinese vessels dyan sa Iroquois Reef, no? And Sabina Shoal, dyan din sa Spratlys or Calayan Group of Islands. At in response, yung ating Acting Defense Secretary, General Jose Faustino, said, "We will not give up a single square inch of Philippine territory per the directive of President Marcos Jr." So this is a very interesting situation we're seeing right now. And last month, nung bumisita si Kamala Harris, yung US Vice President dito sa Pilipinas, pumunta siya sa Palawan, shortly before that, we had this incident whereby a Chinese military vessel forcefully seized a rocket debris from a Chinese-made satellite na was initially retrieved by a Philippine Navy, pero binuli yung Navy natin at kinuha itong debris ng rocket na ito sa atin. So that was kind of crazy. And based on the numbers we have, the Philippines has filed 193 note verbals. So ito mga complaints, no, diplomatic complaints against China and kanilang mga kabulian at kanilang mga provocations na ginagawa dyan sa West Philippine Sea, among others. Hoy, makinig kayo. I'm analyzing. Forget about Picasso. We can talk about Picasso again later on. So this is the situation we have, mga kameta, no? Kung saan we see more and more, or at least continued steady provocations by China dyan sa Calayan Group of Islands. At ang tanong na marami is, wait lang, does this make sense as si President Marcos Jr. is going to China? Ang basa natin, mga kameta, ay ganito. Ang China po ay hindi natutuwa sa mga nangyari pagdating sa Philippine foreign policy, no? In particular, the very warm relationship between the United States and the Philippines under Marcos Jr. So, nung tumakbo si Pangulong Marcos Jr., he met the Chinese, or he gave the Chinese an impression that he's going to be another Tatay Digong, that he's going to be friendly, there's going to be a new new golden age of bilateral relations, blah, 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 blah. And yet, no, despite calling them our strongest partner, a reliable partner, despite seeking big-ticket infrastructure investment from China, all of those things, what we clearly see here is that President Marcos Jr. is extremely chummy-chums with America. So within a span of a few months, we saw Kamala Harris, Secretary of State Antony Blinken visiting the Philippines. We saw Wendy Sherman, number 2 at the State Department, visiting the Philippines earlier this year. We saw 2 in-flesh meetings between Biden and also Marcos Jr. within span of weeks, etc., whether in New York on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly, whether on the sidelines of APEC, etc. So, sidelines of ASEAN Summit, I'm sorry. Kasi si Kamala yung nasa APEC, hindi si Biden. So this is the ASEAN Summit sa Cambodia. Wala naman si Marcos sa G20 Summit kasi di tayo kasama sa G20, right? Let me double check that. But I know yung meeting ay nangyari dun sa sidelines of, I think, US ASEAN Summit. So at least 2 of that, which is twice more than what President Duterte had throughout 6 years in office. So Marcos had more meeting with an American president in 2 to 3 months than Duterte had in 6 years, right? So that tells you a lot. But more importantly, these are things that are worrying China. These are things that are worrying China. Not only in terms of the rhetoric of Marcos Jr., which is much more uncompromising and much more tough when it comes to our claims in the West Philippine Sea, at saka yung supposed, or yung finality na ating arbitration award in the West Philippine Sea. But these things, no? Konkreto itong mga to eh. So the Philippines may open up to 10 bases to China, including bases in Cagayan and Isabela, not to mention in Palawan, not to mention in Pampanga, etc. Big war yan sa China. Don't worry, guys. We'll have a proper meta in that. I'll show you on the map what we're talking about. We'll break that down one by one. Next year, the Balikatan exercises could have 16,000 participants, which is more than 50% increase from the 8,000 to 9,000 participants we have had in recent years. Not to mention, of course, joint military activities between the Philippines and the U.S. will expand from almost 300 to as many as 500 next year. So all of these things are happening big time. So suddenly the Philippines is helping U.S. to push back against China, both in the West Philippine Sea and also dyan sa Taiwan. So, syempre, irritable talaga yan. Nakakairita yan sa mga Chinese, no? But the point is, anong pwede nilang gawin? eh wala naman silang investment masyado sa Pilipinas. So their leverage on us is not that much. Now, if they bully us in the South China Sea more, then the more it will make it easier for the Philippines to justify its pivots towards the U.S. So in a strange twist of events, the Philippines kinda is in a strategic sweet spot whereby China will try to signal its displeasure, but it cannot fully piss off the Philippines because that will make Marcos Jr. even more friendly to U.S. At the same time, because wala namang investment masyadong ginawa ng China under President Duterte, all that 24 billion, blah, 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 none of that really happened. Mahirapan din ng China because they have less strings to pull, no? So China will have to offer Marcos Jr. big things in January if they really want the Philippines to slow down this new blossoming of itong second wind, second time is sweeter kind of romance that the Philippines is having with the United States under Marcos Jr., which very few people actually expected or anticipated. So this is the situation we're facing right now, mga kameta. At yun po yung sabi ko, kailangan natin analyze today. Hindi lang yung nangyari dyan sa West Philippine Sea per se, but the broader implications and the bigger strategic picture. Okay. Mukhang sumobra yung mga cappuccino natin kanina, kaya malakas na yan. And yes, of course, guys, we'll have also a separate meta soon doon naman sa Japan because Japan will be doubling it will be doubling its defense spending as a share of a GDP, so from 1% to 2% soon. So that means Japan will soon have the third largest defense spending in the world, which makes sense in a way because Japan is also the third largest economy in the world. But it's also controversial because Japan, of course, is supposed to have a pacifist constitution. So pag-usapan din natin yung Japan, Philippine-Japan relations, and in the broader context of US-China competition soon, kailangan natin talaga ilagay natin yung mga ano natin what's tawag natin dyan? Yung atin laptop, right? Para OBS, para mapakita ko sa inyo yung mga bases and all. But I just thought before matatapos ang araw, medyo update tayo dito. Para naman sabihin ko sa inyo, hindi ko naman kayo nakalimutan na yan. So shout out dyan sa ating cousin, Dr. Patricia, nakahabol naman dito. Saan ang star mo? I don't see a star sign dyan. Salamat. Ay, mayaman na kayo Taga-Australia kayo Your dollar earning Ayan, mag-thank you din tayo dun sa mga nagbigay ng mga stars and support sa atin. Si Mitch Tengcho, yung mga na-impress ata sa atin today. Medyo galante tayo. Salamat so much kay Ma'am Jocelyn Lumberio, kay Michael Uy, yung mga usual suspects, no? Kay Maria Esmeralda Gasatia, kay Fenny San Miguel. Thank you again, ma'am, for supporting us. Really appreciate it. Again, si Michael Uy, si Sir Uy, maraming comments. And thank you also for joining us. Ernie Carpio, Gemma Yamada, Ayuel Lansky. Don't worry, guys. Ipopost ko mamaya yung yung article natin, analysis natin sa mga latest nangyari at saka yung bigger picture. Now, if some of you guys were watching TV5 yesterday, ayan, biglang lumabas ako sa wedding ng sandali para makipag-interview also about this topic. So I just felt na it makes sense for me to come in. Salamat also kay Ma'am Eden Olona, isa sa mga ating big supporters also for always showing her appreciation and all. Maraming salamat. Shout out dyan sa mga kaibigan natin joining us from all around the world. And malapit ng Christmas. So of course, pag Christmas, medyo break muna tayo sa politika. Medyo ibang ibang usapan. But let me also say congratulations to my cousin, Paolo Abriol, and of course to also Trisha, now also Abriol, for their marriage. Of course, congratulations also to my other cousin, another close cousin, Christine Foronda, and now Herrera, for getting married to my amigo, Angel Herrera, our American-Mexican relative. Alright, so may mga Mexicano na tayo, mga relatives. Alright, so I'll keep it there. Nakikita nyo, gagabi na, so nagda-darken na yung wala akong lahat ng lighting dito. Kailangan ko pa i-set up. So, pasensya na kung medyo low-tech. Picasso, andyan ka ba? Hinahanap ka. Wala na silang paki sa akin. Picasso! 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 Wala na, sa labas na. Habol ko na lang ulit si Picasso bukas bigyan niyo ng star yan. Bilhin natin ng bagong ulit, dyan sa SM. Baka may sale na kasi end of the year na. Alright, mga kameta, maraming salamat. At of course, dun sa mga naniniwala din sa ating mga dance moves. Yung mga dance moves natin, hindi yung mga Zad yan. Michael Jackson yan, Michael Jackson, DJ in the house. Yo! Thank you rin kay Eve J and J. Parang tuwan-tuwa kayo pag medyo hyper ako, no? Yung medyo hyper ako magsalita, parang natutuwa kayo, no? Napansin ko. So, salamat din dun sa gumawa ng kape para sa akin, which is myself. Thank you to myself. Alright? Kaya medyo hyper tayo ngayon. Maraming salamat. Salamat din kay Judith Grosser Thomas for your greetings. Merry Christmas din sa'yo. Salamat sa lahat ng mga sumasali sa atin at nagbibigay ng suporta in different forms and your your good wishes and all. I really appreciate it. Si Joan Reladors, of course, joining us from Singapore. Merry Christmas din sa inyo. Merry Christmas din kay Imordeng. Hindi po ako attorney. Merry Christmas din kay Aloel Lansky, as I said kanina, kay Riza Draya, yan, taga Isabelita Taladtad. Okay, thank you very much. Sensya na dun sa konyo natin minsan. Thank you kay Kalma Ang, joining us from Las Piñas. Yun, no? Talagang mga supporters natin. Thank you rin dyan kay Anna Chris MC. Ayan. Oo, Maltese si Picasso. Kay Mimi Vilando. Yan. Kay Indik Isabelita joining us. Kay Jude Sales Sol. Good afternoon and Merry Christmas to us. Maraming salamat sa inyo. Merry Christmas din kay Grace Kitayama. Yan. Mga regulars natin yan, ha? Kay Hubert De Gracia. Ayan, may comments din siya sa China. Ay, kay Noemi Tablat, of course, ating mga kameta from QC, mga ka-QC natin. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So, join you guys soon. I'll bring back Picasso. Don't worry about it. Adios.